The giant crystal dome of the Galaxy Council building stretched high into the purple sky of Nexus Prime. The morning light made the walls shine like diamonds, but inside the great hall nobody was thinking about beauty. Today was different. Today was scary. Ambassador Tae Min walked slowly through the long corridors toward the main chamber. His black shoes made soft clicking sounds on the smooth floor. Other aliens hurried past him. Their many different faces showed worry and fear. Some had tentacles that wiggled nervously, others had scales that changed colors when they got upset. The bird-like creatures flapped their wings without flying. The robot beings made beeping sounds that meant they were stressed. Men did not look worried at all. His face was calm like still water. His dark eyes looked straight ahead. He carried a simple black bag in his right hand. He wore a plain dark suit that was clean and neat, but not fancy like the colorful robes and shiny armor that other ambassadors wore. When he reached the main chamber doors, he stopped. The doors were huge and made of some kind of metal that sparkled. They were 20 feet tall and had pictures carved into them showing all the different species that belonged to the Galaxy Council. There were over 3,000 different kinds of aliens in those pictures, but right now those doors felt very heavy and light. The chamber, the noise was incredible. Thousands of voices spoke at the same time in hundreds of different languages. The universal translator machines worked hard to change all those sounds into words everyone could understand. But even with the machines, the chamber sounded like chaos. The Galaxy Council chamber was built like a giant bowl with seats going up and up in circles. The human section was near the front, close to the center stage where the council leaders sat. But today the human section looked wrong. It looked empty. Most of the seats that should have been filled with human diplomats were vacant. Only Tae Min and 2 other humans sat in a space meant for 50 people. How above in the floating speaker box, Council Prime Vexed Zetrone moved his jellyfish-like body in worried patterns. His tentacles glowed bright orange, which meant he was very upset. His voice boomed through the chamber speakers, making everyone stop talking. Citizens of the Galaxy Council, we face a crisis unlike any we have seen before. For 93 standard galactic days, no human ships have entered our space, no human traders have brought goods to our markets, no human engineers have come to fix our machines, no humans have answered our calls for help. The chamber erupted in noise again. Aliens jumped up from their seats, waving arms, tentacles, and claws in the air. Some shouted angry words, others made scared whimpering sounds. The reptile people hissed, the insect people clicked their mandibles together. The energy beings flickered like broken lights. Ambassador Krell from the Zephyrian Empire stood up. His purple skin was darker than usual, which showed he was very angry. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke. This is impossible. How can one species simply disappear from galactic society? The humans control the shipping lanes, they run the communication networks, they maintain the power grids on half our worlds. Without them our economy is collapsing. From another section, Ambassador Yila of the Cosmic Federation rose. She was tall and thin with silver skin that reflected light. Her voice was high and musical, but today it sounded panicked. Our colonies are running out of food. The human cargo ships that bring supplies every month have stopped coming. Our people are starting to worry. Some worlds only have enough stored food for 2 more weeks. What will we tell them? Tae Min listened to all this without moving. His face showed no emotion. He did not nod or shake his head. He did not write notes or whisper to the other humans near him. He just sat and listened like someone watching a movie. That did not interest him very much. More ambassadors stood up to speak. Each one told the same kind of story. Human workers had simply stopped showing up. Human ships had turned around and gone back to human space. Human scientists had quit their research projects overnight. Human doctors had left alien hospitals. Human teachers had walked out of alien schools. The Thorvadian ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tree with many branches for arms, spoke in a voice like wind through leaves. Our children cannot learn. The human teachers were the only ones who understood how to use the new education systems that we bought from Earth. Now the schools are closed and our young ones fall behind in their studies. Ambassador Nix from the Silicon Collective made electronic sounds that the translators changed into words. Our factories have stopped working. The human technicians were the only ones who knew how to repair the quantum processors that run our manufacturing systems. We tried to fix them ourselves, but we only made things worse. Now entire industrial worlds sit silent and empty. Tae Min finally moved. He reached into his black bag and pulled out a small device. It looked like a simple tablet computer, but when he touched it, holographic images appeared in the air above his head. The images showed graphs and charts with numbers that made the alien ambassadors gasp in fear. The first image showed galactic trade volume. Over the past 3 months it had dropped by 68%. The second image showed shipping delays. Cargo was backing up at every major spaceport because human ships were not there to move it. The third image showed economic output falling like a rock across 12 different sectors, but Tae Min did not explain what the images meant. He just let them float in the air for everyone to see. Then he touched his device again and the images disappeared. He put the device back in his bag and stood up. Every alien in the chamber turned to look at him. The thousands of voices became quiet. You could hear the soft humming of the air recycling systems and the distant sound of ships landing outside. But inside the great hall everyone waited to hear what the human would say. Taemin walked slowly down the steps toward the center of the chamber. His footsteps echoed in the silence. When he reached the speaking platform in the middle, he stopped and looked around at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked angry, some looked scared, some looked confused. Council Prime Vex Zatron floated down from his high position. His tentacles were still glowing orange, but now they also had streaks of yellow, which meant he was trying very hard to stay calm. Ambassador Taemin, he said in his booming voice, please tell us what your people want. We have been allies for over 200 years. Surely we can work together to solve this problem. What do the humans need from us to end this disruption? Taemin looked up at the jellyfish creature. His voice was quiet and calm, but somehow everyone in the huge chamber could hear every word clearly. My people want nothing from you, he said. The silence that followed was so complete it felt heavy. Aliens looked at each other with confusion on their faces. Nothing. How could humans want nothing? Council Prime tried again, but surely there must be something. Trade agreements, territory rights, mining permits. What can we offer to bring your people back to the galactic community? Taemin shook his head. Slowly, no, he said, we are not coming back. Ambassador Krell jumped up from his seat, his forearms waving. This is madness. You cannot simply leave galactic society. You depend on us as much as we depend on you. For the first time since entering the chamber, Taemin smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they know a secret that others do not do. He asked quietly. Then he turned and walked back up the steps toward the exit. Every alien watched him go, but none of them tried to stop him. When he reached the great doors, he paused and looked back at the thousands of worried faces staring at him. Good luck, he said. Then the doors opened and he walked out. The chamber exploded into chaos as soon as the doors closed. Behind him, aliens shouted at each other in panic. Some ran toward the exits to contact their home worlds. Others gathered in small groups to make emergency plans. The calm that had fallen when Taemin spoke was completely gone. Outside the building, Taemin walked to a small human shuttle that waited on the landing pad. The pilot was a young human woman named Haewon. She looked at him as he climbed aboard. How did it go? She asked. Exactly as expected, Taemin replied. Put us on course for Earth. It is time for Phase 2. As the shuttle lifted off and flew toward the edge of the system, Taemin looked back at the crystal Council building getting smaller below them. Inside that building, thousands of the most powerful beings in the galaxy were discovering that they had built their civilization on the backs of people they had never truly respected. Now they would learn what happened when those people simply walked away. Captain Ji Woo floated in her command chair aboard the cargo ship Soulstar, watching the most beautiful chaos she had ever seen. Through the main viewing screen she could see dozens of alien vessels drifting helplessly in the neutral zone. Trade Station 7 hung in space like a giant metal flower, but today it looked more like a trap. Her ship drifted silently among the alien cargo vessels. None of them could move. Their holds were full of goods that needed to reach destinations across the galaxy, but without human navigation networks they were lost. The aliens had built their trade routes using human hyperspace calculations, human stellar maps, human fuel depot locations. Without those systems their ships could barely find their way between star systems. Navigation Officer Young-Soo turned from his station. Captain, we are receiving our 400th communication request in the past hour. The Vex merchants are now offering 20 times normal shipping rates just to transport their silk cargo to the inner rim. Ji Woo smiled but did not answer. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm dark eyes. Her crew had worked these trade routes for 15 years, carrying alien goods across the galaxy. They had always been polite and professional, but the aliens had treated them like servants. Useful servants, but still just workers who did what they were told. Communications Officer Sunmi looked up from her console. Captain, the Zeltron crystal miners are begging us to take their shipment to Kepler Station. They say their people will starve if the crystals do not reach the food processing plants in time. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife. The aliens had spent centuries building an economy that stretched across thousands of star systems. They had created vast networks of trade and commerce that made them incredibly wealthy. But they had made one critical mistake. They had let humans build and maintain all the systems that held it together. Engineering. Chief Minho walked onto the bridge carrying a datapad. His weathered face showed years of working in space, but today he looked amused. Captain, I have been monitoring alien communications across this sector. Do you want to hear the best part? Ji Woo nodded. The Thorvadian Empire just tried to send a supply convoy to their colony worlds using their own navigation systems. Half the ships are lost in hyperspace. The other half ended up in the wrong star system entirely. One convoy that was supposed to reach the outer rim somehow ended up back at their homeworld. The bridge crew laughed quietly. They had all heard similar stories over the past few months. Alien ships getting lost because they depended entirely on human-made star charts, cargo, vessels running out of fuel because they did not know where the human-built refueling stations were located, military fleets arriving days late to important meetings because they could not calculate hyperspace jumps without human computers. Officer Da Yoon spoke from her station. Captain, long-range sensors show more ships arriving every hour. There are now over 300 alien vessels stuck in this sector alone. Most of them are carrying time-sensitive cargo that will spoil or become worthless if it does not reach its destination soon. Through the viewing screen, Ji-woo could see alien crews working frantically on their ships. Some were trying to repair navigation systems they did not understand, others were attempting to contact anyone who might help them. The desperation was visible even from a distance. Ships that normally flew in perfect formations now drifted in random patterns. Their running lights blinked in emergency patterns that meant distress. The communication board lit up again. Sun-mi listened to her earpiece, then looked at the captain. Captain, we have an incoming message from Admiral Kex of the Galactic Trade Commission. He says he has full authority to negotiate new contracts with human shipping companies. He is offering to triple our standard rates and give us preferred trading status. What did you tell him? Asked GY. Told him we are not accepting any contracts at this time. The captain smiled. That must have been a difficult message to send you. Have been very polite to these aliens for many years. Sun-mi grinned. It felt good to say no for once. At the main screen, an alien cargo ship tried to jump to hyperspace without proper navigation data. The ship flickered and disappeared, but Ji-woo knew it would probably end up somewhere completely wrong. In the old days, a human navigator would have checked those calculations and prevented the mistake. Now the aliens were on their own. Yang-soo turned from his navigation station. Captain, I am reading massive disruptions in shipping traffic throughout the galaxy. The main trade routes that connect the core worlds to the outer rim are completely blocked. Alien ships are backing up at every major hyperspace junction because they cannot calculate safe passage routes. How bad is it? Asked Ji-woo. Yang-soo pulled up a holographic display that showed the major shipping lanes across the galaxy. Normally the display would show thousands of ships moving in organized patterns like rivers of light flowing between star systems, but today the display looked like a broken spiderweb. Ships were clustered around major space stations, unable to move, while vast stretches of space that should have been busy with traffic were completely empty. It looks like the entire galactic economy just stopped working, said Yang-soo. Min-ho walked over to look at the display. This is worse than we expected. When we pulled out of the shipping business, we thought it would cause some delays and inconvenience. But this looks like complete economic collapse. Ji-woo studied the holographic map. The aliens had built their civilization assuming that humans would always be there to make the systems work. They had created dependencies so deep that removing humans was like removing the foundation of a building. Everything above it came crashing down from across the bridge. Sun-mi called out, Captain, we have an emergency transmission from the Andromedan Medical Council. They say their hospital ships are stranded and cannot reach colonies that are suffering from plague outbreaks. They are asking us to transport medical supplies and doctors as a humanitarian mission. Ji-woo felt a moment of sympathy. The humans had not wanted to cause suffering, they had only wanted respect, but the aliens had built a system where every critical function depended on human expertise. Now people were dying because medical supplies could not reach them. What are orders from Earth? She asked. Min-ho checked his secure communicator. President Soo-jin sent updated instructions 1 hour ago. We are to provide emergency medical assistance only. No trade cargo, no passenger transport, no military support. But we can help save lives. Ji-woo nodded. Contact the medical council. Tell them we will transport their emergency supplies, but only to prevent deaths. We will not carry anything else. As Sun-mi sent the message, Ji-woo looked out at the chaos surrounding them. In just 3 months, the most advanced civilization in galactic history had been reduced to helpless confusion, all because they had taken one species for granted. The aliens had thought humans were just good workers, people who could fix problems and move cargo and maintain systems, but they had never realized that humans were not just workers, they were the architects of the modern galaxy. Everything the aliens took for granted had been designed, built, and maintained by human hands and minds. Navigation. Officer Yang-soo spoke quietly. Captain, there is something else. You should see. He brought up another display showing economic data from across the galaxy. Stock markets were crashing, manufacturing had stopped, food distribution networks were failing, power grids were going offline as human technicians refused to maintain them. In 3 months, we have accidentally destroyed the greatest economy in galactic history, said Yang-soo. Ji-woo shook her head. We did not destroy anything, we just stopped fixing it for them. The economy was always broken. The aliens just never noticed because we kept repairing it. On the main screen, an alien diplomat ship approached flying a white flag of truce. The ship was broadcasting on all frequencies, begging for a meeting with human representatives, offering everything from territory to technology to vast sums of money. Sung-mi listened to the message, then looked at her. Captain, they want to negotiate. They say they are willing to give humans anything we want if we will just come back. Ji-woo smiled. Tell them to contact Earth. Our leaders will decide what happens next. We are just cargo ship captains. As the Soul Star drifted silently through the chaos of stranded alien vessels, Ji-woo thought about her daughter back on Earth. The girl was only 12 years old, but she would grow up in a galaxy where humans were not servants. They would be partners, or there would be no partnership at all. The ripple effect was spreading across every star system, every colony, every space station. The aliens were learning what they had always refused to see, that the quiet, competent humans they had taken for granted were actually the most important species in the galaxy, and now those humans were gone. The emergency session of the Galaxy Council looked like a battlefield after a war. Representatives from dozens of species sat slumped in their chairs, looking defeated and broken. The great crystal dome above them had cracks running through it because the human maintenance crews were no longer there to keep it repaired. Pieces of crystal occasionally fell to the floor with tiny tinkling sounds that made everyone jump. Council Prime Vex Zatron floated above the chaos, but his jellyfish body had turned a sickly gray color. His tentacles hung limp and lifeless. The bright orange glow that usually showed his authority had faded to barely visible flickers. He had not eaten in days, because even his food came from human-controlled supply lines and Krell of the Zephyrian Empire stood at the speaking podium, but he looked nothing like the proud warrior who had shouted angrily 3 months ago. His purple skin had turned pale. His forearms shook as he held a datapad that contained reports from across his territory. "My friends," he said in a voice that cracked with exhaustion, "I bring news from the Outer Rim colonies. 17 worlds have declared independence from the Empire because we cannot supply them with food or medicine. 3 more worlds have gone completely silent. We think their populations may have fled to human space." Gasps and worried murmurs filled the chamber. The Zephyrian Empire had been one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. If they were losing entire worlds, then no one was safe. Ambassador Yila of the Cosmic Federation rose slowly from her seat. Her silver skin that once reflected light like a mirror now looked dull and tarnished. Dark circles under her eyes showed she had not slept properly in weeks. "The situation in my territory is even worse," she reported. "Our main industrial worlds have shut down completely without human technicians to maintain the machinery. Our people are rioting in the streets demanding that we fix the crisis. Riots have started on 47 worlds so far from the insects section of the chamber." Ambassador Ezek clicked his mandibles in distressed patterns. His compound eyes reflected the dim light as he spoke in buzzing tones that the translators changed into words. "Our hive worlds depend on precise temperature control systems that only humans know how to operate. Without climate management, 3 of our colony worlds have become uninhabitable. Millions of my people have died." The chamber fell silent as the full horror of the situation sank in. This was not just economic collapse anymore. People were dying, entire civilizations were falling apart. The galaxy was returning to the chaos of the pre-contact era when species could barely travel between their own star systems. Council Prime tried to restore order by calling for proposals, but every idea that came forward was the same. Send military forces to Earth, demand that humans return to work, threaten them with consequences. But deep down, everyone knew these ideas would not work. How do you threaten the people who built everything you depend on? Ambassador Knox from the Silicon Collective made his electronic sounds that translated into desperate words. "Perhaps we could offer the humans full membership in the council, give them voting rights equal to our own, make them partners instead of workers." Angry shouts erupted from multiple sections of the chamber. Many species had spent centuries believing they were superior to humans. The idea of treating them as equals was difficult to accept, but the alternative was watching their civilizations crumble. That was when Ambassador Bo Ram entered the chamber. She walked slowly down the center aisle as every alien eye turned to watch her. She was small, even for a human, barely 5 feet tall, with graying hair and simple clothes that looked plain next to the elaborate robes and armor worn by alien diplomats. But something about her presence made the entire chamber go quiet. Bo Ram had been the deputy human ambassador before the Great Withdrawal. Now she was the only human representative left in council space. She had stayed behind specifically for this moment when the aliens would be desperate enough to listen. She reached the speaking platform and looked around at the thousands of worried faces staring at her. When she spoke, her voice was quiet, but somehow it carried to every corner of the vast chamber. "You want to know what humans think about your military threats," she said. Ambassador Krell leaned forward, his forearms gripping the edge of his seat. "You cannot fight the entire galaxy alone. Your species numbers only 8 billion. We command fleets with millions of ships." Bo Ram smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret that would terrify anyone who heard it too. "Have millions of ships," she agreed, "but tell me, Ambassador Krell, who designed the hyperspace engines that power those ships?" The purple-skinned alien opened his mouth to answer, then stopped, looking confused. "Who created the navigation systems that guide them between stars? Who built the weapon systems that arm them? Who designed the life support systems that keep your crews alive in space?" Krell said nothing. His face was turning darker as the implications hit him. Bo Ram turned to address the entire chamber. "Every system you depend on was designed by human engineers, built by human workers, maintained by human technicians. You have spent so long thinking of us as servants that you forgot we were the architects of everything you take for granted." She walked closer to the alien representatives, who shrank back in their seats despite themselves. "You want to threaten us with your military? Go ahead, try to attack Earth. See what happens when your ships cannot navigate without human star charts. When your weapons systems shut down because they need human maintenance codes. When your life support fails because you never learned how to repair the systems we built for you." Terrible silence that followed was broken only by the sound of crystal pieces falling from the cracked dome above. Ambassador Eula found her voice first. "But surely we can negotiate some arrangement. The galaxy is big enough for all of us to prosper together." Bo Ram nodded slowly. "Yes, it is. But prosperity must be shared equally, not given as charity from superior beings to their servants." Council Prime vexed Zatron floated down from his position above the chamber, his tentacles glowing with desperate hope. What do your people want? Equal representation, full council membership, shared governance of trade. Rootsbow. Ram shook her head. Our people want something much simpler than political power. What the jellyfish? Being asked, his voice barely a whisper. Respect, she said simply. We want to be treated as equals, not as useful animals. We want our contributions acknowledged, not dismissed. We want partnerships, not servitude. She paused, looking around the chamber at faces that showed fear, confusion, and slowly dawning understanding. For 200 years humans have solved your problems, fixed your mistakes, maintained your technology, and asked for nothing but fair treatment. In return, you gave us jobs and called us a service species. You praised our efficiency while making sure we knew our place. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. Now you discover what happens when the service species decides to stop serving, when the useful animals refuse to perform. Tricks when the efficient workers walk away from their jobs. Ambassador Zik clicked his mandibles nervously. But without cooperation, both our species and yours will suffer. The galaxy needs unity to survive. Bo-Ram smiled again, and this time there was genuine warmth in it. You are absolutely right. The galaxy does need unity, but unity between equals, not between masters and servants. She turned and began walking back toward the exit, but stopped at the chamber doors. When you are ready to treat humans as partners instead of employees, our leaders will be willing to talk. Until then, enjoy trying to run a galactic civilization without Usta. Doors closed behind her, leaving thousands of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sitting in stunned silence, wondering how they had let one small species become so important that losing them meant losing everything outside the chamber. Bo-Ram contacted her ship and prepared to return to Earth. The aliens would learn eventually that respect could not be demanded or bought, it had to be earned. And sometimes the only way to teach that lesson was to let people discover what they had lost. Phase 3 was about to begin. Dr. Kyun-Soo worked quietly in his laboratory on Mars, completely ignoring the flood of desperate messages that filled his communication screen every day. The Red Planet had become humanity's greatest research center, and today it held secrets that could save or doom galactic civilization. His laboratory was simple and clean, with white walls and basic equipment that looked primitive compared to the flashy alien technology most species preferred, but appearances were deceiving. The quantum computers, humming softly in the corner, represented breakthroughs that alien scientists had been trying to achieve for centuries. Research Assistant Yoon-ji walked into the lab carrying a datapad that showed the latest batch of offers from alien governments. The numbers were so large they seemed impossible to believe. Doctor, she said, setting the pad on his desk, the Andromedan Science Council has increased their offer again. They are now promising to make you Supreme Director of all galactic research. You would have authority over scientists from 300 different species. Kyung Soo did not look up from his microscope, where he was examining samples that glowed with soft blue light. These samples represented his latest discovery, a method of creating unlimited clean energy that would revolutionize how civilizations powered their worlds. What else? He asked calmly. The Cosmic Federation is offering to give humanity an entire star system with 50 habitable worlds if you will just share your faster-than-light communication research. The Zephyrian Empire says they will make Earth the capital of their territory and give humans full citizenship right. Kyung-Soo finally looked up from his work. His tired eyes showed the strain of months it spent developing technologies that could change everything. He was 50 years old, with gray streaks in his black hair and hands that showed years of careful scientific work. Tell them I am not interested in titles or territory, he said quietly. I'm interested in respect. Ji nodded but looked confused. Doctor, the aliens are offering everything they have. How is that not showing respect? Kyung-Soo walked to the large window that looked out over the Martian landscape in the distance. He could see the massive construction projects where human engineers were building things that would have seemed impossible just years ago. New types of spacecraft that could travel between galaxies, artificial intelligence systems that could solve problems in seconds, space habitats that could house millions of people for decades. He explained alien scientists took credit for human discoveries. Every breakthrough we made was presented as their achievement, with humans listed as research assistants or technicians, if we were mentioned at all. He pointed to a display on the wall that showed scientific papers published over the past century. The pattern was clear. Human names appeared as junior authors, while alien scientists were listed as the primary researchers. Even when humans had done all the actual work, they called us talented workers, he continued. Useful for carrying out the ideas of our betters, but the ideas themselves were supposed to come from alien minds, more advanced minds, superior minds. Sunji looked at the display with growing anger. I never realized it was so systematic. Yeon-Soo nodded. Every major scientific advance of the past 200 years came from human research teams, but the credit always went to alien supervisors. The Nobel Prize for discovering hyperspace mechanics went to a vexed scientist who had never done experiments. The breakthrough in quantum computing was credited to a Zeltron researcher who could not even understand the mathematics involved. He walked back to his desk, where several projects lay in various stages of completion. Each one represented months or years of careful work that could transform galactic civilization. This energy source, he said, pointing to the glowing samples, could power entire worlds for thousands of years without pollution or resource depletion. But alien scientists claimed it was impossible because their theories said it could not work. The faster-than-light communication system, he continued, pointing to another device, could allow instant contact between galaxies, but alien physicists insisted that their understanding of space-time made such technology impossible. What they never realized was that human science had moved far beyond their theories. We solved problems they could not even understand, but we let them take the credit because we wanted to be good galactic citizens. From across the lab came the sound of an incoming priority message. Yung checked the communication screen and her eyes widened. This message is from the Galactic Science Academy. They are offering to completely restructure their organization. They want to make humans equal partners in all research. They promise to give proper credit for past discoveries and share future Nobel Prizes fairly. Kyung-soo smiled, but there was sadness in it. Too little, too late, he said. The laboratory doors opened and Director In-ho entered. He was the head of Mars Research Station and one of the most important humans in the solar system. His face showed the stress of managing dozens of critical research projects while fielding desperate offers from alien governments. Dr. Kyung-soo, he said, I have news from Earth. President Soo-jin has made a decision about sharing our research with alien governments. What did she decide? Director In-ho sat down heavily in a chair near the desk. Until the aliens demonstrate genuine respect for human contributions, all advanced research remains classified. No sharing of technologies, no joint projects, no scientific cooperation. Ji looked shocked, but doctor, without cooperation, the aliens will fall even further behind. Their civilizations are already collapsing. If we do not help them, billions of people might die. Kyung-soo walked to another display that showed the status of alien worlds across the galaxy. Red indicators marked planets where critical systems were failing. Yellow showed worlds where shortages were causing social unrest. Green indicated the few places where local populations had managed to maintain basic services. You are right, he said quietly. People are suffering, but look at what else this display shows. He pointed to a section of the galaxy where the indicators were all green. These were star systems where human populations lived alongside aliens, but where humans had always been treated as equals rather than servants. On those worlds, human engineers continue to maintain the power grids. Human doctors still treat patients. Human teachers still educate children, but only where humans are respected as partners, not where they are seen as useful tools. Director In-ho nodded. The aliens have a choice. They can continue to believe they are superior and watch their civilizations fail, or they can learn to treat humans as equals and rebuild together. From the communication screen came another urgent message. Yung read it quickly, then looked up with amazement. The Thorvadian Empire has just announced they are restructuring their entire government. They are creating a human affairs ministry with full cabinet-level authority. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations between their empire and humanity as separate but equal species. Kyung-soo raised an eyebrow. That is interesting progress. Perhaps. Director In-ho stood up and walked to the window. The choice is becoming clear, he said. Either the aliens learn to share power and respect, or they lose access to the science and technology that makes modern civilization possible. Outside the window, construction continued on projects that represented humanity's real power, not military might or economic control, but the ability to innovate, solve problems, and create solutions that seemed impossible. The aliens had ships and weapons and vast territories, but humans had something more valuable. They had the knowledge to make it all work, and now, for the first time in galactic history, the aliens were discovering what happened when that knowledge was no longer freely given. The real power had always belonged to the species that could build the future. Now it was time to decide who would be allowed to share it. 6 months after the Great Silence began, the Galaxy Council chamber looked completely different. The broken crystal dome had been replaced with a simple curved ceiling made of metal and glass that humans had designed. The fancy floating platforms, where alien leaders once sat above everyone else, were gone. Now there was just a round table, where all representatives sat at the same level. President Soo-jin sat at the table wearing a plain blue suit that cost less than the jewelry most alien ambassadors used to wear around their necks. Her dark hair was pulled back simply, and her hands rested calmly on the table surface. She looked like someone who had won a war without firing a single shot. Around the table sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but they looked nothing like the proud leaders who had once ruled from crystal thrones. Ambassador Krell had lost weight, and his purple skin looked pale. His forearms no longer gestured with authority but stayed folded nervously, and his lap. Council Prime Vex Zatron floated in a simple chair instead of hovering above everyone else. His tentacles had returned to their normal color, but they moved carefully as if he was afraid of making sudden movements. The negotiations had taken 3 months of careful talks. During that time, more alien worlds had declared independence or simply stopped communicating. Some planets had tried to contact human colonies directly, offering to become human territories if it meant getting access to working technology. Others had attempted to steal human scientists or engineers, but those efforts had failed when the humans simply refused to cooperate. President Soo-jin looked around the table at faces that showed exhaustion, defeat, and slowly growing hope. The document in front of her would reshape galactic civilization, but she wanted to make sure everyone understood. What they were agreeing to, the Galactic Cooperation Treaty, is simple, she said in a voice that carried easily around the quiet chamber. Equal representation for all species, equal respect for all contributions, equal sharing of resources and knowledge. No species rules over others, no species serves beneath others. We are partners or we are nothing. Ambassador Yila leaned forward, her silver skin reflecting the soft lighting. Her voice was much quieter than it had been 6 months ago. When you say equal representation, do you mean humans will have the same voting power as species that control hundreds of worlds? Su Jin smiled. Yes, that is exactly what I mean. A species' value is not measured by how much territory it controls or how many people it rules. Value comes from contribution to the common good. But the Thorvadian ambassador protested, his tree-like branches rustling with worry. Some species have populations in the trillions, while humans number only 8 billion. How can such different-sized civilizations have equal power? Because President Su Jin replied, size is not the same as importance. Over the past 6 months you have all learned what happens when one small species withdraws from galactic society. The entire civilization collapses. Size means nothing if you cannot maintain what you have built. Council Prime Vex Zatron floated forward slightly, his tentacles glowing with nervous energy. But surely there must be some consideration for the species that have led galactic civilization for millennia. We have experience in governance that newer species lack. President Su Jin looked directly at the jellyfish. Being your experience led to a system where one species could paralyze the entire galaxy simply by going home. Does that sound like good governance to youth? Chamber fell silent as the truth of those words sank. The aliens had built a system that looked impressive and powerful but was actually incredibly fragile. When the foundation was removed, everything above it collapsed instantly. Ambassador Bo Ram, who had returned from Earth for the final negotiations, spoke from her position at the table. The old system made the mistake of confusing dependency with leadership. You thought you were leaders because others did what you told them to do. But real leadership means people follow you because they want to, not because they have no choice. From across the table, Ambassador Zik clicked his mandibles in what the translators recognized as agreement. For too long we treated human cooperation as tribute owed to superior species. We never understood that cooperation must be freely given to have any value. President Su Jin nodded and opened the treaty document. The terms were clearly written in simple language that left no room for misunderstanding. All species would have equal votes in council decisions. All scientific discoveries would be shared equally with credit given to the actual researchers. All trade agreements would be negotiated between equals with no species having special privileges. All military actions would require unanimous consent from all member species. But the most important clause was the simplest one. Any species could leave the cooperation at any time for any reason. No threats, no punishments, no attempts to force continued membership. The galaxy had learned the hard way what happened when one group felt trapped or disrespected. Ambassador Krell read through the document slowly, his 4 eyes scanning every paragraph. When he finished, he looked up with an expression that mixed relief with lingering worry. This treaty gives humans tremendous power. If you control the technology that everyone depends on, you essentially control everything. President Su Jin shook her head. We do not want to control anything. We want to build things together. We want to solve problems together. We want to explore the galaxy together, but as partners, not as servants. She stood up and walked to the large window that looked out over the space station where they were meeting. Through the transparent metal, she could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the station. In the past few weeks, alien vessels had slowly begun moving again as human crews returned to work. The economy was restarting, but everything was different now. The first test of the new system had come 2 weeks ago when a plague outbreak threatened 3 alien colonies. Instead of humans being ordered to help like workers, following instructions, the Galactic Medical Council had formally requested assistance and offered to share all research data about the disease. Human doctors had worked alongside alien medics as equals, and together they had stopped the plague in half. The time previous outbreaks had taken, trade was resuming, but now human shipping companies negotiated contracts as equal partners rather than accepting whatever terms were offered. Alien merchants were discovering that treating humans with respect led to better service and more reliable deliveries than the old system of barked orders and assumed complaints. Importantly, scientific research was becoming truly collaborative. Human and alien scientists worked together on projects with shared credit and shared resources. The breakthrough discoveries that resulted were more impressive than anything either group had achieved alone. President Su Jin returned to the table and looked around at the assembled representatives. Are there any questions about the treaty terms? Council Prime Vex Zatron spoke carefully. If humanity leads technological development and controls critical infrastructure, how do we know you will not use that power to dominate others the way we once did? The question hung in the air like a challenge. President Su Jin considered it seriously before answering, because she said, we remember what it felt like to be dominated. We remember what it was like to have our contributions dismissed and our voices ignored. We would never want to make others feel that way. She smiled, and for the first time in months it was a completely happy expression. Besides, true power comes from people choosing to work with you, not from forcing them to obey. When you earn respect through competence and fairness, people will follow you anywhere. When you demand obedience through threats and superiority, people will abandon you the moment they get the chance. Ambassador Yila reached for the signing stylus. The Cosmic Federation agrees to the treaty terms. One by one, the other ambassadors signed their names to the document that would reshape galactic civilization. When President Su Jin added her signature last, the transformation was complete. Later, as the representatives prepared to return to their homeworlds, Ambassador Bo Ram found herself standing next to Council Prime Vex Zatron at the observation deck, the jellyfish being floated quietly beside her, watching human and alien crews working together to repair ships in the station docks. "Do you think this will really work?" he asked, his tentacles glowing with cautious hope. Bo Ram watched a human engineer explaining a repair procedure to a group of young alien technicians who listened carefully and asked respectful questions. "It will work," she said, "as long as everyone remembers that cooperation is a choice, not an obligation. The moment anyone tries to go back to the old ways of masters and servants, the whole thing falls apart. But if we all choose to be partners instead of rulers, then yes, it will work better than anything the galaxy has ever seen." Outside the station window, the stars shone with the same light they had always shone, but now they illuminated a galaxy where respect was earned rather than demanded, where cooperation was chosen rather than forced, and where the future would be built by partners working together as equals. The age of servants was over. The age of cooperation had begun.